I wanted to draw a comparison between this year's NBA Finals and the previous matchups between the Cavs and the Warriors. Everyone very simply describing this as a trilogy, a three-match, if you will, the third consecutive season in which we've seen the same opponents meet in the NBA Finals, a first in NBA playoff history. Warriors versus Cavs. And the one big difference that everyone brings up is that Kevin Durant is now with Golden State. And sure, that's a big-time addition, no doubt about it. But it's not the only difference. And the others may be more understated and subtle, but I'm going to describe them here. Let's start with the coaches. Steve Kerr will unlikely be on the sideline from everything we've heard because of the lingering back issues, and certainly the Warriors have to feel comforted by the fact that Mike Brown has previous head coaching experience and, more importantly, has coached this team for the majority of the postseason. And also you'd have to imagine that Brown would love nothing more than to be the one roaming the sideline if and when the Warriors defeat the team that fired him not once, but twice earlier in his career. So there's certainly a revenge factor there. However, I wonder how much of an impact Kerr's absence will have. It's one thing for Brown to successfully lead the team in a sweep of an 8-seed Portland team who played the majority of the series without its starting center and Yusuf Nurkic, who was a big part of them turning around and ultimately making the playoffs, or a sweep of the Jazz, who were missing point guard George Hill for the better part of the series, or even a 61-win Spurs squad that only had star Kawhi Leonard for 2.5 quarters of the series. Now they're facing an opponent with more talent than any they've seen up to this point, and you have to wonder in the big moment, will Kerr be missed? Time will tell on that, but I do wonder. On the other side, Ty Lue must feel better about entering the finals this time around. Remember last year? He was a first-time head coach who had taken over for David Blatt mid-season, and now he has a dramatic finals win under his belt, has already been through the experience of coaching on the game's biggest stage. Certainly that's an advantage for him. But let's delve into the rosters and begin with Cleveland. The most important difference between the Cavs this time around and previously is that their big three is healthy and effective. And I think the effective part is important because Kevin Love, 2015 NBA Finals, didn't play because of his shoulder injury that he sustained against the Celtics when Kelly Olynyk pulled it out of the socket in painful fashion. Then 2016, Love averaged 7.3 points per game and 5.9 rebounds and averaged less than 7 field goal attempts per contest. He dealt with a concussion, missed some time overall, seemed extremely uncomfortable with his role on the team, and really picked the worst time that he could to go into a major funk. How about Kyrie Irving? 2015 NBA Finals, he had 23 points in Game 1 before missing the rest of the series with a fractured kneecap. And then in 2016, he was healthy and played really well, scored 27 points a game, and obviously is known for that huge three-pointer in Game 7, which was the deciding bucket of the contest. So if you examine the current state of both players, Love is in the process of having his best season in a Cavs uniform. He appears to be so much more comfortable with his role. In the regular season, he averaged 19 points and 11 rebounds per game. In the playoffs, he's averaging 17 points, 10 rebounds. He's shooting 46% from the floor and 48% from downtown. He has been highly effective and seems to know what they want him to be doing. Meanwhile, Kyrie, coming off another All-Star appearance in which he averaged this season 25 points, 6 assists a game, and fresh off the 42-point performance in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Put this into further perspective. In the 2015 NBA Finals, LeBron averaged nearly 36 points a game, 13 rebounds, 8.8 assists, 1.3 steals, and who is the second leading scorer in that series? Timofey Mozgov. Then J.R. Smith, then Tristan Thompson. He had very little help. And at times, Matthew Dellavedova was the second best player on the floor for Cleveland. And the series still went 6 games because LeBron was that good. The 2016 NBA Finals, LeBron went for nearly 30 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 2.5 steals, 2.5 blocks per game. Kyrie scored the 27, as I mentioned. Then J.R. Smith at 10 points a game. Tristan Thompson averaged a double-double, 10 and 10. But again, hardly anything from Kevin Love. This year, Thompson is a better player. Plus, they've added a sharpshooter and former All-Star in Kyle Korver and a former All-Star and backup point guard in Darren Williams. Now, Williams is a better scorer and arguably distributor than Dellavedova, but certainly they'll be missing the defense that Dellavedova brought on Steph Curry that Williams doesn't necessarily bring to the table. But the bottom line is LeBron is finally going to have a full complement of players in his supporting cast, assuming there are no dramatic injuries as the series starts, right? Like we saw with the kneecap injury with Kyrie. But you take a look at that supporting cast, especially Kevin Love. They were able to compete at a high level without Love in 2015 and ultimately win with an ineffective Love in 2016. He's my X factor now in 2017. Now to Golden State, the 2015 NBA Finals, big key for the Warriors was the emergence of Andre Iguodala, who ultimately took home Finals MVP honors. But their stars were solid. Curry averaged 26 points a game. He did shoot 44% from the floor and 38.5% from three-point range and was criticized for his poor shooting. He still averaged at 26 points a game. Iguodala was their second leading scorer, then Thompson, Green, and Harrison Barnes. So they won that series, and they had a really balanced attack. And Iguodala, I mean, like, who would have thought he would win the MVP over Steph Curry, who had just won his first regular season MVP? 2016 NBA Finals, the Warriors were entering fresh off a 73-win regular season, looking for a coronation of sorts, trying to cap off what would be, with a title, the greatest season in NBA history, but it ultimately wasn't meant to be. Biggest factor, Steph Curry wasn't himself. He had sustained knee, ankle, and elbow injuries during last year's postseason, averaged 22.6 points per game, and shot 40% from the floor and just 40% from three-point range, the lowest field goal percentage of any playoff series in his career. Now, Thompson scored nearly 20 points a game. Green gave them a double-double, 16.5 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.7 steals, but was suspended for Game 5 in a huge moment and a part of the series which really shifted things. Harrison Barnes averaged 9.3 points, Iguodala 9 points. They had Livingston at 8 points, Barbosa 8 points. Bogut averaged 2 blocks a game. Overall, in their previous 2 final appearances, the Warriors could rely upon their consistent and steady depth. And yes, it was all about Steph and Clay bombing away from downtown and Draymond doing a little bit of everything, but they could also rely upon a combination of Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Leandro Barbosa to provide plenty of complementary scoring. Plus, one of the biggest things in that year's team that is lacking is the strong power rotation that the last 2 versions have had. So this year's team does not have that. Being able to rotate strong defensive presences like Andrew Bogut, Festus Ezeli, and a scorer like Mo Spates, I think that was an underrated and very lightly discussed key to their success. I can't undersell the importance of adding arguably the second best player in the league. So Durant is phenomenal, and the fact that they were able to make things work financially and bring him over, that is a huge, huge piece to add if you're the Golden State Warriors. And the scary thing is that after some growing pains early in the season, things have come together really well for them. Heck, when he got hurt for 20 games, they played some of their best basketball. And then the question was, how will they play when he comes back? They didn't miss a beat. They've been tremendous in this postseason. They've been absolutely dominant. They dominated without him, and they've dominated with him. So with Durant in the postseason, I think that's been key to see them all play well. But at the same time, most importantly, much like the Cavs, they're all healthy. We don't have any nagging injuries like we saw with Steph Curry a year ago. The only downside to bringing Durant in is that they lost a lot of their depth, and that has a lot to do with the salary cap. They can only fit a certain number of guys there. So Iguodala and Livingston still there, but now they're utilizing the relatively untested Ian Clark and Patrick McCaw off the bench. And I do wonder in the finals how big of a role Matt Barnes will play as a potential defensive stopper in this series. But more importantly to me, they don't have the same kind of rim protection that they had with Bogut and Ezeli that they do now with Zaza Pachulia, JaVale McGee, and David West. And that concerns me knowing how effective LeBron and Kyrie are at getting to the rim. And one other point I want to make. I said they're playing well. As a team, they are. Klay Thompson has not played well in the postseason. He's averaging 14 points on just 38% shooting and 36% shooting from downtown. The regular season, he averaged 8 more points, and he shot 47% from the floor and 41% from three-point range. So that's a key there, that they need to get him going if they're going to win in the emphatic fashion that many are projecting them to do. But finally, as I wrap this up, my big picture thought for both teams, the Cavaliers obviously looking to repeat. Plenty of motivation for everyone. But while doing so, the team can't help but be motivated by that singular force that is LeBron James as he continues to enhance an increasingly impressive resume. He's chasing that ghost in Michael Jordan and wants to win as many championships as possible, and this could be the fourth of his career. On the other side, there is extreme bitterness, and rightfully so for the Warriors, about losing a 3-1 lead in the fashion they did in last year's finals. First time anybody's ever overcome a 3-1 lead. First time everyone's ever surrendered a 3-1 lead on the game's biggest stage. They've been waiting an entire year to exact their revenge, and they're hungrier than ever. And regardless of what he says publicly, Kevin Durant's primary purpose for joining Golden State is to win a championship. This is his chance. This is why he came to the Warriors, for this stage and the opportunity to win the one thing that's eluded him so far in an otherwise illustrious career. Bottom line, I think this is going to be a fascinating series and can't wait for it to finally get started. Cavs Warriors the third time around. I know Durant's the big difference, but a lot of subtle differences. It's going to be fun to see how it all plays out.